reignited my passion for fantasy. And then a couple years later, we started playing D&D with some friends, and I was the dungeon master.
Oh, okay.
And I loved it. Like, it was super fun. It was like this like epic moment that like had been like building up to for so long.
Yeah.
And it just landed so well. It was like that moment. It was just like it felt so good from like a storyteller point of view that it like finally clicked in my head. I was like, I can do this. I was like, I can tell like a complex story with like interweaving storylines and have it land and people actually like it.
Hello, all right. Today I get the amazing opportunity to talk to fantasy book power couple, BookTube star Bookborn, and her husband, acclaimed indie author Zack Argyle. Hello, you two. Thanks for joining me.
Hello.
Hi. That was quite the intro.
Oh, it's going to get more. I mean, I feel like part of my job here is to like toot people's horns, so get ready. If you don't know Zack and Bookborn, you should definitely check them out. Bookborn is super modest, saying all she does is booktube, but she's also been a panelist on various conventions. She's interviewed authors at bookstores. She's been a guest on podcasts. And oh, by the way, her Just Booktube channel has 25,000 subscribers and she's had 1.5 million views, and she's only been at this thing for 3 years. So like, take a friggin' bow.
I'm very embarrassed.
Amen.
Plus, and we'll get into this, she visited Sanderson's super secret villain lair to discuss his first secret project book, Trust of the Emerald Sea, which is super cool, and I want to hear more about that. But that's just half of this fantasy power couple. Zack Argyle is the author of Voice of War, Stones of Light, and Bonds of Chaos, together making up the Threadlight trilogy. He's won the 2020 Indies Today Best Fantasy Award. He was a finalist for the Book Bloggers Novel of the Year Award, a finalist for the Self-Published Fantasy Blog Off, beating out hundreds of other novels. And Threadlight was number 7 in the subreddit R Fantasy Top Self-Published Novels, above names like Michael R. Fletcher, Rob J. Hayes, and many others. Not to mention, Zack recently ran a Kickstarter for an absolutely beautiful omnibus edition of the Threadlight trilogy that raised over $130,000, putting him in the top 30 most funded fiction Kickstarters ever. I don't know if you know that, Zack.
Wait, really?
It's true.
We didn't know that.
Top 30. Yeah.
Crazy.
So congratulations on that amazing Kickstarter. Let's get into it. How does that feel? Are you excited or are you overwhelmed now with like all the signing you're going to have to do?
Because there was 2 Kickstarters going on at the same time. No, 3 that were higher than mine. So like I was just like, oh, I did well, but I didn't think it was that good. That's awesome. Crazy.
No, you did super well, but
actually, I feel started the Kickstarter early because there was there was another Kickstarter that got announced that was gonna go out. That was gonna start on a Friday, Friday that I was gonna start, and so like on Tuesday night I was like, Hillary, we got to get this video done right now. I got to launch Wednesday morning now.
Well, yeah, that was. You got to edit for me right now, even though you've been editing all day.
She loves me.
Did you see, I think I saw on Goodreads that you read like Unsold and Soulsmith by Will Smith. Did you see, or Will White, not Will Smith, Will Smith, a very different Will. Anyway, did you see the Kickstarter that Will White did?
They're above the shield.
Nice. Yeah, I thought his like pitch of like how he framed it the same as Sanderson's, that was so funny. I'll have to link to that to people. But yeah. So you worked on this. Well, I mean, tell me though, it sounds like you're feeling more excited than overwhelmed so far. Is that true?
With the Kickstarter?
Yeah.
You know, I would be completely overwhelmed if I did not have somebody handling all of the distribution for me.
Yeah.
So there's an author named AC Cobble, and he now runs this company called Merrick Books that handles distribution and campaign management. Mm. And so he's going to, be doing all of that for me. And he's also doing it for like the new Dragon Mage book, special edition. He's doing it for Olivia Atwater,
Did he do Sword of Pagan?
Andy Peloquin. He's doing the distribution for the U.S. side of Sword of Pagan as well. So he knows what he's doing. And it just makes me feel so much better because it's like over 1,000 books, and I was just like, dude, if
right.
That's
gonna take up your whole garage, right?
Yeah, when we started, I was only expecting, not even close to that. I realistically, I thought we would land rent like $25,000 or something. I was like, that's probably realistic dollars. And then we
Turns
ended
out.
at 130. So I was like, a lot more books than I expected. And I was just like so glad that I had planned ahead of time and had somebody else handling all of the shipping for all of it. So I was like,
Right. Right.
yeah, I would be like, head under the water if not for him.
So you're working with Merrick Books. How did it start? Did they like contact you, or did you contact them, or?
I reached out to him. It was something that, so he was like just starting this. It's something that Michael J. Sullivan's son is also doing.
Right.
But he already like was booked up, and I was like, okay. Well, then I found out that Andrew was doing it, and I had actually purchased his Warhite conspiracy book on Kickstarter, so I knew he knew what he was doing, and so I reached out to him, and he was like, yeah, like we're just getting started with this stuff. He was doing J.A. Andrews' book, who I also love her series, so she's great. And so I was like his second customer, basically like official customer.
Yeah.
But now,
and I was like, oh boy.
Yeah. And now,
Right.
now there's a Slack group with like all of the people that are working with him. And so he like gives us like information and like shows us like pictures of his new warehouse he has to like store all the books and everything. But there's like a bunch of power names in there, and it's pretty cool. So he's definitely crushing it.
That's pretty sick. That seems like a fun little chat to be a part of, right?
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Let's step back a bit though. Let's go way back. Have you always, Zach, been like a fantasy nerd? Do you remember the first book that really like grabbed you,
I was a fantasy nerd when I was like elementary school, starting to fade off in junior high, and then didn't really think about it until we got together about 12 years ago.
Oh,
I think
see.
I brought back your fantasy nerd.
She reignited it. And then what really kicked it off is one of my really good friends, Brandon Williams. He's
been in our D&D group for years and years
For a
and
very long
years.
time.
Yeah, good friend of ours.
He gave me a bootlegged PDF of the full Mistborn trilogy. And he was like, dude, this guy, Brandon Sanderson's great. Like, you should read this.
Yeah.
And I read it, and I just loved it. Like, still to the date, like, it is my favorite trilogy of all time. I think it just is
Anytime
fantastic.
someone brings up, though, that we have read the bootleg version of that the first time, I would like to, like, point to our shelves and be like, we have given that man so much money. So, like, I feel like it evens out.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, so it
Plus, I mean, on your booktube, I mean, you definitely say a few kind words about Sanderson once or twice, right?
Just a few times, yeah.
I'm reading Trust right now.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah, it's good.
So I know that also you're a software engineer, right?
Uh-huh.
And you did work for PlayStation, so I want to hear a little bit about that. What kind of work did you do for PlayStation? Was it as cool as it sounds it might be?
I mean, it was cool. I worked on, I don't know if you have PlayStation, but when you're on the console, like you can buy digital games and stuff. And so I worked on the store. So I built out the store. And for a very long time, like I had built out like the checkout flows for actually like purchasing the games. And it was the code that I wrote that was up there for, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years. Like,
dang.
After I was gone. So it's much better now. And once they got the PS5 stuff, they usually like revamp everything. But
I feel like I would definitely be like using that as a bar story though. It'd be like, oh yeah, you like Call of Duty? Did you buy it online? Thank me. Buy me a beer. You owe me, because it wouldn't have happened. I'd be doing that.
I do have a jacket. It's a PS4 launch team jacket, which is pretty cool.
That's kind of sick. Yeah. But you've since worked for Pinterest, and I guess now you're working at Instagram. So do I have you to thank for like the cool filters that make my photos look cool?
No, I haven't worked on those. I work on messaging at Instagram.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That messaging is how I got in talk with Bookborn. So thank you.
There you go. You're welcome.
There you go.
Making dreams come true.
So I think it's interesting to kind of talk about the day jobs, because like so many authors, we have day jobs, right? But I think that there's also, I find it interesting, programmers, software engineers who become novelists too. I think that there's a few of them. The biggest name I can think of is Andy Ware. I don't know if you know that he was a software developer also. I feel like that influence is pretty heavy in The Martian, where like one of the crew members is a software engineer, right?
Oh yeah.
Did you put The Martian back behind you just for that?
For the plug.
For the plug.
That one's there all the time because The Martian's one of my top. Literally, like The Martian, I watched the movie and like I had seen the previews. I'm like, this is going to be a movie I like. I watched it and then I came out of the theater. In that particular theater, there was a bookstore like right next door. And I'm like, I'm getting that book. I'm getting it because, yeah, I fell in love with that story. But, but do you think that there's something about like writing code that makes us want to write fiction instead? You know?
Maybe. I think part of it is like software engineering is so terse, right? When you're writing software, like a lot of times it's like how much can I do in as little code as possible so that I can like maintain it for a long time. And then writing a novel is like the complete opposite, right? Especially like you're talking about like fantasy and epic fantasy, right? It's like how much can I blow this up? Which I obviously didn't do a great job of because my books are all under 400 pages. But I think that's part of it. Is just like you like to grab something that feels a little bit similar, but then in like a different aspect to it, different perspective.
Yeah.
And writing software and writing like a software program is very similar to like world building, right? Where like there's all of these different pieces that you've got to understand of the system, the front end all the way to the back end, and how like even like the developer experience, how that fits into, how performance fits into it, accessibility, all of these different pieces. And you're juggling them all to try to like create this thing that like you're proud of and feels full and rich. And then you start writing a book and you're like, oh yeah, there's a lot of pieces that are all coming around and I got to make sure I juggle them all well. And I got these characters and I got to try to, understand like where they're coming from. And
Right.
yeah, I think there's some similarities for sure.
Right. Yeah, I think my analogy, I kind of look at it like they're both putting together a puzzle, but very different ways, very different pieces.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I also just
That's
think
cool.
the engineering nerd and the fantasy nerd. There's a
Yeah,
Venn
there's
diagram
crossover.
with
There's
a very
crossover.
I was
large-
wondering where you were going.
This
with
is
that.
my Venn diagram. There's a large Venn diagram, there. That's what the arms were.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I mean, that's obvious. But also, of course, engineering nerd means inherently also a little bit of a video game nerd. So Overwatch is your favorite game? I got to hear, like, what is it about Overwatch that makes it your favorite game?
I don't know, man. I mean, I haven't played it it's probably been 2 years now, really. But I played it for many years, like, I took it pretty seriously. I, like, watched streamers and a bunch of YouTube videos. So, I love like competitive team sports, and that one was like taking like the competitive nature of like Call of Duty or something, but then it was like the fantasy version of it, and I think that's what I love so much about it. It was like so fantastical. Like the characters were like pretty absurd, like if you think about them like individually, but then they come together it's like superheroes basically,
Right.
and it was fun. Yeah, so I think it was just like the mix of the fantasy nature of it with all of the competition.
So you're saying like Winston, the giant gorilla with like the lightning gun, he wouldn't fit in Call of Duty? Like, okay, I guess.
No, he was
He
never
should.
a Winston main.
So I should clarify here. Hillary has Bookborn has a
Yeah, get it together.
has a master's degree in geotechnical engineering. So she never talks about it, but she is just as engineering nerdy as any of us.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, we'll get to
She hates
that.
it when I mention it, but I like
Yeah.
to brag about it. So
I can't blame you. I would, yeah. My wife has a master's, and I'm like, look how smart she is.
right, we got to be the cheerleaders for our spouses.
Yeah. Yeah, you like team games. Aren't you also a coach of your like kids sports team?
Sorry.
Oh, he's got it. Oh,
Wearing
wow.
our SF Giants team jersey
Look
right now. We just got back from taking team pictures.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm
Kudos to you, man.
kid
As
pitch.
someone who's brought my son to a soccer game so he could chase butterflies and not actually play, like, thank you, because you're doing the Lord's work here, I mean,
Sometimes it doesn't feel like it, man.
It's horrible.
Like, why am I doing this? It's so frustrating.
yeah. Well, I bet, but like you gave me, like people like you gave me a little time to be like, you got him. So,
Thank you.
what about, all right, getting back to kind of writing and stuff. What is either coolest or most recent piece of fan art you've seen or had, or maybe like coolest or most recent review that you've received where you're like, yeah,
Oh man, I mean, fan art, I don't know if I can consider it fan art, but I've been getting back the art for the Kickstarter, and it's just so good. Oh my gosh. The art these guys are doing is incredible.
That's
I
pretty
think
nice.
My favorite is the one that Randy Vargas did. It's a scene from Stones of Light, book 2 in Threadlight. And it's a scene that I just absolutely love, where it's a mom protecting her like adult son, and she's like gone like full vicious mode to like jump in and save him. And he just did such an incredible job with the art. From like as far as reviews go, I got a nice review like email today actually. It was a guy who was like, "Oh my gosh, I just finished the trilogy. I really loved it." And then he was like, "But also, what happened to Laurel's parents? It never really got explained." And then I messaged him like a little thing, and I was like, "No, it's kind of like a red herring kind of deal. Laurel's 17 years old. She's trying to blame blah blah blah." And then he emailed me back, and he was like, "Thank you so much for responding. That was so nice." It's like so funny. It's like I don't know. I feel like I want to talk about my books, and then sometimes it's nice just seeing how excited people get to talk about it with you. So
people are always surprised that you respond, and I'm saying like the general you, because like people get really surprised when I respond, and it's like I respond to every message I get. So it's funny. I think people like because you've published a book or like you're on YouTube, people think you're bigger than you really are. Like we're like nobodies, you know what I mean?
We're
so like we don't get
some
that many
schmucks
messages
over here in Washington, just like,
it's not like we get,
nerding
that
out in
many.
our free time.
And so it is funny when people get excited about that. Like it feels good. Yeah.
So what made you? Well, I'm guessing that you said you haven't really played the game in like 2 years, and I'm betting you like kind of put down the mouse and picked up the pen. I think that's part of it. But I think it's been a little bit longer you've been working on the stories, because you published the first one 3 years ago now.
Yeah, March of 2020, right when COVID hit.
That was something I wanted to talk about. We'll get into that. But what made you want to start writing in the first place?
Yeah, so I have always enjoyed writing. I have written a lot of like poetry and done a lot of songwriting. My freshman year of college, I was actually studying broadcast journalism. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be a TV anchorman.
Okay, cool.
I went a very different direction after that, but I've always enjoyed writing. And then what kicked it off was Hillary getting me. I can't say Bookborn. I can't do it, no matter how many times I try.
It's just
everyone knows now.
Gotta give up on it. Yeah.
Then she reignited my passion for fantasy, and then a couple years later, we started playing D&D with some friends, and I was the dungeon master.
Oh, okay.
And I loved it. Like, it was super fun. It was the first time any of us in the group had played before, except for me. I had played a little bit before, like in the previous year. And they all gave me their backstories. And then we did Storm King's Thunder. And so we had like the major arc. And then I weaved everybody's backstories into the arc. And then we had like these mini arcs.
But you also changed Storm King's Thunder quite a bit. Yeah. There was a lot of kind of homebrew mixed in with that.
Which was just, it was just super fun. And then there was one night in particular that like really was like the turning point, where I had like planned all of these things out, and there was like this certain moment for one of the player characters, and they like defeated this bad boss and all of these bad guys, and there was this like cult that had been following them and like trying to get them since like the beginning, since like session 1, and this is like I don't know, probably 8 months into it or something, and like things die down. They're in this town like after they like all of this destruction has happened, and like the last bad guy comes forward. He drops to his knees in front of one of the player characters and starts bowing. And then
you're not telling this right, but it's okay.
He bowed in front of him and he said, "First Lord." And then everyone at the table gasped. It was like this like epic moment that like had been like building up to for so long, and it just landed so well. It was like that moment. It was just like it felt so good from like a storyteller point of view that it like finally clicked in my head. I was like, I can do this. I was like, I can tell like a complex story with like interweaving storylines and have it land and people actually like it. And then I had like obviously like had ideas, like all fantasy nerds have ideas for stories they could write someday.
Sure.
But that was like the turning point where I was like, I should seriously try to do this. And so I started running with it after that.
Nice. That's sick. I love that. Like, I haven't played D&D in a while, but what a great game. And I love how it relates to the storytelling. Yeah. So I haven't read your book yet. I'm definitely looking forward to it once I get the omnibus. But I know, like, just kind of the like back summary. It talks about how this child could save the world if they can keep the child alive, right? Mm-hmm. Were your children kind of part of the inspiration, or like, at all?
Yeah. Right. It's the chosen one trope is like obviously probably the most used fantasy trope of all time. And so when I became a dad, it was kind of like one of those things where I just like, I'm holding my son and like looking at my child, and like it just came to my mind. I was like, what if my child was the chosen one? And like, so I started thinking about that from like the point of view of the parents. Like, if you knew that your child was special and destined to do something, like what would you do to keep them safe? And so that was kind of like the basis of the story, and then it evolved quite a bit from there.
I would say family, though, in general, was a big inspiration, because we had talked a lot about how there's very few healthy couples in fantasy. Mm-hmm. You either witness the falling in love or the
usually
falling
one of them
out.
gets murdered.
Yeah, or someone dies. Like it's never active. It's either in the past. And so you had talked to me a lot about just like family dynamics as something you hadn't seen a lot.
Healthy ones, yeah.
Yeah,
and
healthy
it doesn't
ones.
mean that like there's not going to be arguments.
No.
Because there's still arguments in
right.
healthy relationships. But like they're still like they love each other. So the main character Chris and his wife, like they love each other.
Not perfect relationships, but healthy relationships,
it's not
which
perfect,
is very different. Yeah.
Yeah, they support each other when it counts.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. It's funny, like, my daughter was born. My son's is my stepson, so I wasn't around when he was born. But my daughter was born, and she kind of got me into reading again because I could hold her and hold a Kindle. But it's also kind of given me like a similar inspiration. I kind of want to do I have a story idea for doing the chosen trope. But what if like the chosen one's not just the daughter, but like the daughter and the parent? But then I will have like the mother get murdered, because it's got to use that trope, I guess. But we'll see. I don't know. Like I'll have to make sure that I'm not stealing any of your ideas.
No, steal away, man. It's fine. I will warn you though, if you put a small child in a book, it's very annoying to write.
Oh yeah.
Like, I gotta think about like what this kid, especially like a baby, right? It's like an infant in my story, and it's like
when
infants are not easy when you're trying to hide or when you're trying to run.
Yeah.
Holding them.
Trying to fight.
When Zack wrote his third book, me and another friend beta read, and he would always tell me, he's like, you just tell me if the baby's like you have to tell me if it makes sense. Like, where's the baby? Like, you have to make sure I haven't forgotten about the baby.
I remember the baby.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, I gotta read it all. I'm excited. Well, cool. Let me kind of shift gears a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more to Bookborn, not Hillary, Bookborn. We talked about Zack's Kickstarter. I'm sure what drove his huge wave of success was you and your channel and your audience. You just hyped him up, and we're talking about the Kickstarter, and you didn't mention him at all, did you?
I talked about it every day. Yeah, obviously that's a joke.
Right. Because you've chosen to not talk about him at all, right?
Well, this was from the very beginning, right? When she started her channel, like my books weren't popular at that point, and she like from that point she was like, I'm not going to talk about your books. Like
Ever.
That's just like
it's like nepotism. I don't know. I'm really awkward about that stuff. I hate self-promotion, and I just haven't. In fact, I did mention his books for like the first time on my channel last month, and so many people in the comments are like, "What? You guys are married? Like, what? Why don't you talk about it?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know." So anyway, it's like an Easter egg now.
I mean, it's kind of weird,
right?
Like we make money from my books.
Yeah.
And so like feels kind of disingenuous to have her, pimp them out.
Yeah. Well, and also,
I mean, yeah, sure. Like, I mean, I get like not having, you not wanting to be like, and buy his books, but at the same time, if you were like, and hey, look at this guy, turns out,
I want to be trustworthy. And trustworthy as a reviewer. And I told Zack, like, especially with the first book, not as much the third, but the first book, I knew so much about that book before I ever read it. And the first draft that I did edit ended up being so actually pretty vastly different from the final product that I actually don't know what the experience is like reading Voice of War. Like, I couldn't accurately, because I didn't read it like I would read a normal book. I was so involved from the very beginning in all of his ideas and how they shifted. I couldn't give a review.
Yeah, an objective review.
An objective review, even
really any of my books. I can't not talk about them.
Yeah, he's terrible. He always tries, and he's like, "Never mind, I'm going to tell you." So it's not even like objectivity because he's my husband. Objectivity, like, I couldn't be objective of any book that I had that much involvement in. Not because I wrote it or anything, but just because I knew so many different stages of it. So I couldn't tell you, like, what are you going to be excited about? Who are you going to love? I don't know. Like, I know who I love, but maybe it's because of this.
There are no twists for you when you read it.
There are no twists for me when I read it.
No surprises.
Yeah. And so that's probably the major reason I don't talk about it. But I'm proud of it. It's not like I don't like them.
Nice. Well, this will be fun. Like, yeah, hopefully your audience will check this out sometime and be like, oh yeah, they are. They look at them both together in
They're in the same room. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, technology these days, who knows?
Yep. Cross the boundary.
So that's interesting, though, hearing you talk about that as a reviewer, because I think that is something, I'm working on writing some novels, and you do get, like, I'm sure, Zach, you feel like you get too close to it as the writer, and then you're like, does this even work? And like having some, like, a beta reader. That's interesting that you're experiencing that as a reviewer, with his stuff. But do you ever think about the fact that your videos have been watched 1.5 million times now?
That's really weird. I see that Zach's getting something off our shelf. Oh, that's what he got me when I hit 1 million views. A little plaque.
Oh, that's cool.
See it.
Yeah,
it's really weird. I don't know really how to think about it. The YouTube thing it's just bizarre from top to bottom. You always want to be succeeding and getting better and growing more, but if you ever stop to really think, like, okay, 1.5 million views, that's weird. And shouldn't have happened, maybe. It's weird. I'm still not sure I wrap my head around it.
Well, I'll disagree with shouldn't have happened. I mean, your videos are top notch, but I get what you're saying. Like, it's kind of, and I'm guessing that none of this was even a glimmer in your mind way back when you were studying civil engineering, as kind of Zach was talking about, right?
No, it wasn't a glimmer. I mean, I will say, though, I had the idea for some form of book blog for years. In fact, I think I got that idea maybe shortly before you started thinking about writing, because it happened. I can think of the house that it happened in when I got the idea, and that was the house we first started playing D&D in. So it was around the same time. I just thought, I love books so much, and I'm always talking to Zach about all my stuff, usually before bed when he wants to go to sleep. And I was like, I need someone else to annoy. Like, it's not enough anymore to have, like, the 2 people I know in my life.
I'm not enough for her.
Well, I think you were grateful.
Yeah.
This is Zach's least favorite thing I do is, like, we have all day, and then it's like he's tired and getting into bed and ready to go to bed, and I'm like, so I have this thing I want to talk about for you two. I have this idea, because that's just when my mind just starts.
She just, like, will sit up, crisscross applesauce in bed, like, while I'm, like, trying to, like, go to sleep next to her, and I'm like, stop thinking so loud.
I am the one in my relationship with my wife that's like, and she's like, no, I put in the earplugs already, leave me alone. Yeah,
there's one in every relationship, right? It's up to us to just be that person. So I was thinking for a long time, and I actually my initial idea was for a blog. So I actually had, like, designed and coded a blog, and I had written a bunch of blog posts, but I just kept feeling like the time wasn't right because I was really busy. At the time, I was working, like, part-time working in office and part-time working at home with my kid, which, if anyone has done that, is a terrible idea. Don't do it. And so I just kept pushing it off. And finally, like years later, like 4 maybe years later, I was like, either I'm going to do it or I'm not. Like, I've been sitting on this idea for so long. Like, am I going to just keep dreaming, or am I going to just do it? And I had just read, as a part of a book club, Brene Brown's book. I don't know if you know Brene Brown. She's kind of famous in the, you know.
Yeah.
What was the book? Daring Greatly. And it was all about, if you're just, are you going to take risks and just do the thing you want to do, or are you not going to do it? And it was like the kick I needed to just be like, just do the thing. But then I Googled it, and it was like, you can't start a blog now. Like, blogs that have already started are great, but you can't, no one's going to read like a new blog. And so Zack was actually the one who convinced me to try YouTube, which was so out of my comfort zone. I can't even begin to describe, because my blog was going to be faceless. I did not want my face a part of it. It was going to be pictures of books. That was it. And like my words. And well, actually I started Instagram first, and it wasn't what I wanted, because I wanted long form content. And so Zack was like, you should do YouTube. You could totally do it. And so, yeah, that was vulnerable for me. I did not like being on camera.
Then I just bought you a camera, and I was like, well, now you have to do it.
For Christmas, because he knows
it was a waste of money.
He knows I hate wasting money. So he bought me a camera and was like, now we have this camera. So if you don't want to waste money, you've got to do it.
Like, I mean, that's support right there. Let's be real. That's, you know.
Yeah.
I like it when my wife gives me that little bit of a nudge that I need. That's good.
It. Yeah.
Yep.
Zach's always doing that for me.
I will say my claim to fame, though, is that I came up with the name Bookborn.
It was
yeah.
It was that. And that was actually the name that was with my original blog idea. Like, I had that name for like 6 years before doing it. But you and my sister and I were all brainstorming, and we had tons of ideas. And I think the only idea you gave was Bookborn. I think like we had been brainstorming, like, I don't know, I don't come. And you came and you're like, Bookborn. And I was like, that's it. That's like for sure. So yeah, that is your...
Nice.
That was you.
Were you guys like aware of other booktubers when you kind of wanted to get into the space? Like, had you seen other people and you're like, oh, this is YouTube could be a thing? Or was it
Zach was, because you showed me people. I had not watched a single booktube video before I started booktube.
Yeah.
Or I don't like to admit it. Zach had to show me people. And like after I'd filmed a video, he's like, these are like the famous people. I've obviously watched booktube now, but no.
Sure.
Had never even seen. I wanted to be a blogger. So I...
Yeah.
I had never.
That's funny. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you're also now, Bookborn, you're also a SPIFBO judge, or the Self-Published Fantasy Blog Off. So I mentioned that in the introduction. I think, though, also you were not a judge the year that Zack was a contestant, so we don't have to worry about the nepotism there, right?
No.
But can you tell us a little bit about, again, Self-Published Fantasy Blog Off, SPIFBO? What is it?
Yeah, SPFBO, which is how I pronounce it, but SPIFBO is a little easier, is the competition that Mark Lawrence, the very well-known fantasy author, started to help bring quality self-published to light, because there is so much of it, and it kind of has a bad reputation, like, oh, self-published, it's not quality. And he wanted to have a competition to like help sift out the kind of the cream of the crop. To the top. And so this is its 9th year, and it has just grown in popularity so much. In fact, the claim this year that's so insane is, well, I guess SPFBO 1 took something like 72 hours to fill. Was it longer than that?
It
was
not
a few days.
fill.
Oh, it didn't fill. They just cut it after 230 entries.
They got enough to run it, but they didn't fill up the 300.
They didn't fill up the 300. Last year, it filled up in 8 hours. This year, it filled up in 41 minutes.
300 entries.
300 entries, 41 minutes. It was practically a lottery. So, yeah, it's just crazy. And this is only my 2nd year judging. Well, kind of 3rd year. I helped a different blog out in SPFBO 7, but I didn't become a main judge until 8. And it is a very fun experience. It's hard. It's a lot of work. But it's really rewarding to read such great books. And also the indie community, you have so much more access to those authors. So you get to like really talk to them and see their excitement and kind of like see as they grow a fan base. And that's really rewarding.
That's cool. That seems, yeah, I could see how that's rewarding and fun. But you have to read 30 books in the first round, right? How long do you have for that?
There's 5 months for that portion. I've recruited help. So a lot of the single bloggers, some of them do it alone, but a lot of us recruit help in the first section, because if I just did it, I'd have to not finish so many books. Like, I'd have to make snap judgments. And I want to give every book as fair a chance as possible, because, like, in my regular reading, I force myself to finish books. It doesn't matter how much I'm not enjoying it. I will finish that book to the end, because you just never know. And so I've recruited other YouTubers to help me out. So they each read 6 books and then give me a semi-finalist. And so I only read 5 of them and then choose a finalist. So I only have to read 5 books in about like a 2-month period. And then I have to read 10 books in the next 4 months or so.
Yeah, well, that's less bad. Can you tell us who those like booktubers that are helping you out are?
Yeah. So Dom from Dominish Books, Pete Wagar from is it just, no, what's his? Pondering with Pete. Ponderings with Pete is his. Leslie from The Nerdy Narrative, Jordan from Jordan Reads, and Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads are the people helping me out this year.
That's
all
super cool.
Very fun people. Dom and Leslie and Pete helped me out last year as well. And then Andrew and Jordan are new additions this year.
I didn't know that, but like that, I gotta say, like, that makes total sense to me. I am not a fast reader, and there is no way that I could get through like 30 books, you know. Then
no, and it's fine. Like Mark says, like, you don't have to finish these books. Like, the only, you know, it's just the finalists that matter. But I am not like those other booktubers who are reading like 30 books a month. Nope. I am not that kind of reader. I read like 4 a month. That's it.
Yeah. I'll read 4 a month on a very good month. Or like, you know, we were talking about the Cradle series before. Those ones just like, they fly, you know? So, depends. Yeah. Plus, Travis Baldry was such a great narrator. I would like, you know, have it on all the time, doing dishes, whatever, you know?
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I'm reading Malazan right now, and that has brought my book reading to a real grinding halt. So I'm not reading very much right now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You get one of those chonky door stoppers, and it's like, well, so there goes my count, right? So how many books do you end up reading in a year?
I read probably between 70 and 80 a year, wow. Which I actually don't talk about very openly, only because I don't like how it's become a competition. I really dislike the idea that reading more makes you more of a reader. And in fact, I was not reading that much before BookTube. It's like, because I need content and because I'm engaging in the community, I am reading more because of that. Like, sometimes it's not always enjoyable. Like, I am, like, before I would say I was only reading about 30 a year, I would say. So it's increased quite a bit, because I don't think the number of books correlates to how much you love them.
Yeah.
And so I really hate that one aspect.
And that also doesn't leave room for like rereads, which I think are really nice. Like, there's definitely been times where I've been like, you know what, I'm in a bit of a slump and I'm going to go pick up one of my favorites, and then I'm going to feel better and like escape for a while in that favorite, you know? Like,
and there was only 1 year, it was actually before I was on BookTube, 1 year where I was doing some sort of challenge. So I was trying to read like a number of books in a year. And I said I'd never do it again, because what I noticed is it affected what I was choosing to read. So like I was avoiding longer books or more challenging books. Yeah. And I hated that. I hated that it was forcing me to, you know, read shorter things I thought I could get through quicker. And so I tried really hard not to psych myself out on that and be like, look, yeah, Malazan takes me like 6-7 weeks to read. And like, that's fine. That is just what it is. And it's fine.
Right? Yeah. That chonky door stopper is not meant to fly through, right? Yeah. This is kind of random, but I'm just curious. Do you always read print, or do you read some ebooks also? I
would say 90% of what I read is physical print.
Really? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, part of the reason why there's so much, well, I mean, Lord of the Rings special edition DVDs need to be very prominent, but right. Right. But there probably would be more if it wasn't for the fact that a lot of my library is just on Kindle, you know? Like,
Yeah. No, I just really don't like reading digitally. Yeah, you're the digital reader. But I do like, I might get digital arcs. For Spiffbo, I sometimes have to read digital before I get to the finalists. But I did buy all the finalists last year because I just wanted to read them physically. The Year of Sanderson, if I want to review those in a timely manner, I have to read them digitally. So that's kind of, I tend to just read the stuff I have to read digitally. Yeah. And then I'm not an audiobook person, so I only listen to like a couple audiobooks a year in rare circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like being a parent has turned me more into an audiobook person.
It's just way more convenient. But like, so I'm listening to an audiobook right now, and it's one of the few that I'm very into. I'm listening to Stephen Pacey read A Trouble with Peace by Joe Abercrombie. And Stephen, like, I don't usually like audio narrators, but I will give Stephen Pacey, like, he's very good. But like, I put this earphone in, and my kids immediately seem to sense that I am attempting to listen to something, because all of a sudden I am interrupted like 800 times. And like, I already struggle listening to books. So being interrupted every minute, I'm just like, why am I even trying to read this right now? So I hear you. It's tough.
I prefer like reading when I can over the audiobook, but like being able to still get a book while I'm like doing the dishes and my wife is getting our 2-year-old down is like, it's nice.
And that's why it takes me so long, because it's usually my chore time. Yeah, like folding laundry, doing dishes.
So yeah, you read that many books in a year. You're doing the Spiffpo judging. You're making these videos, but somehow you also still have time to play some video games occasionally. I know you're playing that latest Zelda game, right? Are you more of a single player game or?
Yeah, I'm all about the single player games. I do not want to play with people online. That holds zero appeal for me. Part of the thing is not being able to pause. That is like the one contention in our marriage has been video games that cannot pause. It was Clash of Clans and then Overwatch, and now it's Bullet chess. Zack is always playing. That's chess games that you play online that are a minute. You can only have a minute.
Right. Where it's like speed chess. It's speed chess,
yeah.
I mean, the good news there is like, I mean, even though there's not a pause, like it's not going to be much longer.
Exactly.
Yeah, wherever that before. I need to play a game that I can pause. That's all I'm saying is that. But no, I'm single player. I am loving Tears of the Kingdom. I don't play video games as much now. Like Tears of the Kingdom is going to take me years probably to finish at this point, just because I do not have much video game time.
And because you're a completionist.
Well, and because I'm a completionist. Yeah, it's got to be everything.
Oh man,
Tears is so good. Not like people need a reason to play it, but I already like it a lot.
Oh yeah, you're gonna put over 100 hours on that.
So many hours into that game. Yeah, it's gonna be.
Get her money's worth.
I'm gonna get my money's worth. Yeah.
You really did. Like, I mean, you found a nerd wife.
Yeah.
Right.
And I say that.
You pulled me deeper. Yeah.
I hope you understand. Like, that's a huge compliment in my view. You know.
I have always identified as a nerd. I am not. Yeah. I mean, that's why I open my videos with "Hey nerds." That is an affectionate term, in my opinion.
Right. Right. Yeah. And you said that your favorite game is Dragon Age Inquisition, which of course is a BioWare. I haven't played Dragon Age Inquisition, but I love Mass Effect 1 and 2. Can we just talk about like how good those BioWare stories are?
They're so good. And that's why I was so scared for a while, because their next Dragon Age, they for a while were like, it's only going to be on an online game. And I was like, how could you do this to me after making this amazing game? I played Dragon Age Inquisition
like 170 hours or something.
It was like 150, I think. I played it through 4 times to make sure that I got every quest, every story, every
Those
PS4,
games are not supposed to be played that way.
Every PS4 trophy. Because the PS4 trophies, you couldn't get them all in one game, because sometimes you had to choose like the other thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that game I got my money's worth. Every DLC. Yeah. You know, I was thinking when we were talking about favorite games, though, have you played Undertale?
No.
Oh, that's my other favorite game I love to talk about. It's an indie game.
Okay.
But I mean,
Tell
it
me
got
more.
tons of awards. It's not exactly like an underground game. But Undertale is not like a 170-hour game. Undertale is like a 15-hour game. Much more accessible.
Right.
But that is one of, I think, the coolest stories. So if you are into like the BioWare stories, if that's why you like Mass Effect, you've got to try Undertale. It is one of the coolest video gaming experiences I've ever had because it is
Don't look
purely
it up ahead
about
of time,
story.
though.
Do not look it up. Go and I went in completely blind, and I am so glad because I figured out what was going on about halfway through the game. That was the only game I have ever finished, and then literally the same night went and started it over. Just to re-experience with the understanding. Yeah. It's a great game.
Cool. All right, I'm adding that to the list.
You gotta put it on a list. You gotta play it. And it's short, so it's okay.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I can get it. I can
This
like
isn't any
justify
Tears
that
of the
one.
Kingdom. Are you playing Tears?
No, I'm not playing Tears. Like, we have one Switch, and my son takes it more often. And I'm like, I don't want to get, like, attached to a game.
I'm just forcing my son to watch me play. That's what he did during his video game last time. He watched me play, and I'll let him run Link around. But he has to listen to me because, like, when you're a completionist in that game, you have to be very meticulous about how you go around the map. Because if you don't want to miss anything,
you're not walking around just anywhere.
You can't just walk around anywhere. You've got to, like, look at the map and, like, do it section by section if you aren't going to miss anything. So, anyway.
have you gotten
video games very differently? Because you played Dragon Age.
I haven't been playing any video games for a couple years now.
When you played Dragon Age 2, but it was like you just played it in like 30 hours and then finished the game.
I want to get through the game.
Yeah, you played the game.
Yeah. See, I am a little bit more like that way. I'm not gonna go for like every single chest and that sort of thing, but I respect it. I respect it.
Yep. Same.
I told myself in Tears I wasn't going to because I don't have time, and then I started playing and I was like, I want to. I'm just gonna take a few years.
Right. That's nice. You get that. You can like relax, right? It's not like book related. You don't have to worry about deadlines. There you go. Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
I like it. Yeah. Well, cool. All right. I'm going to wrap this one up here. This has been super fun. Zach, where can people find and follow you online?
Twitter's probably the main one, at SFFauthor. I don't know how I got that handle, but I did. That's me.
Amazing.
Also on Instagram, Zack Argyle author.
Yeah. Maybe less amazing, but it's still, really good. Got your name. And Bookborn, I know obviously you're on YouTube, right?
Yeah, YouTube at Bookborn. And Instagram is the other place you can find me, which is bookborn.reviews. Good.
But if you've enjoyed this conversation, stick around because I'm going to have another episode with these two. We're going to get into some other stuff. We're going to be talking more about, their life together, including how nerdy one of their first dates was. And I'm also going to try to encourage them to participate in this recurring segment, How Dare They? So you won't want to miss it.
Uh-oh.
Thank you for watching. And if no one's told you today, you're an absolute legend.